The council meeting of the 15th of September 2020. Before I open the meeting, you'd think back and where you were at this time 20 years ago, because we were having the opening of the Sydney Olympic Games. My wife reminded me tonight I was at Wentworth at the confluence of the Darling and the Murray River, a pub with my dad, my youngest son and my wife watching the opening of the Olympic Games. So think back during the meeting where you were 20 years ago.
Mr Mayor, I actually was, days before it, we went to the full dress rehearsal at the stadium for the opening ceremony, which was something I'll never forget anyway.
Excellent. Exciting times. And if you think about 20 years on, Australia's certainly in a different place than it was 20 years ago. All states of Australia and every home in Australia is quite different from that enthusiasm of 20 years to thinking of where we're going with COVID-19. I would like to call any apologies for absence.
There are no apologies, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative persons. Council prayer. Tonight we have Pat Farrelly from the Ever Upward Church in person. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Mayor. Father, I want to thank you, Lord, tonight for your care over us. Lord, I thank you, Lord, for the people that represent our city of Orange. And I thank you, Lord, for all the matters that are going to be considered tonight. Lord, I thank you for their dedication, Lord, in coming to the council meetings. I pray, Lord, that tonight, that as the meeting proceeds, that Father, you would just bless and, Father, care for each motion that goes forth. I pray, Lord, for those in the city, Lord, that are suffering, Lord, through this COVID-19 experience, Lord, even through the district around Orange, Lord. I thank you, Lord, for the people that care for people that are in distress. I pray for all those, Lord, that are suffering mental health, Lord, that are suffering, Lord, in just isolation. And I pray, Lord, that, Father, you will, Father, take care of them, Lord, through all those people that you've appointed. I thank you, Lord, for these people that you've appointed, Lord, tonight. And I ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks, Pat. Is it okay if I still call you Pat, or? That's very nice. Thanks very much, and thanks very much for coming. Very much appreciated. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I'd also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri Nation, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who may be present. Declarations of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for the consideration of the council meeting? Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On item 5.9, I have a significant pecuniary interest as a business owner, but also a commercial property owner in the CBD. So I'll be leaving the meeting for item 5.9.
Thank you, Councillor McRae. I have a declaration, first of all, sorry, Councillor Millett, I'll do this, I've got it in front of me. For item 4.2, notice of motion, donation of unspent catering monies. It's a non-pecuniary one, as my wife works for two of those organisations in a voluntary capacity. Yeah, 4.2. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 5.9 as my family have a building in Byng Street. It's an office, and I would like a Lincoln Council as to whether that is a significant conflict of interest.
It's really a matter for you, Councillor, to decide that. You would have to think about whether item 5.9 might have an impact on your business or a perception that it does.
Yes, and I did think about that. It certainly doesn't conflict with any other business which is going out there. It's an office space. I think there's a significant conflict of interest, so I'll be
Understood.
staying in. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mileto, and myself. Councillor Whitten would declare an interest in the item on the TDO. So we're both on the board.
It's item 5.8.
5.8. Okay. Thank you very, very much for that. There are no mayoral minutes. Now the council meeting adjourns for the conduct of the open forum. Can I just advise, look, there are a couple of people approached me that want to speak but didn't have forms in to do as such. We have 4 speakers already. Unfortunately, we had to make a rule that those had to be in and signed before the meeting, and I couldn't allow those because it had set a precedent which could be quite dangerous for council when we have 40 people turning up and want to speak at the last minute. Unfortunately, the rules are the rules and apply to all of us. First of all, I think we have Caddy Marshall. Caddy there? Caddy Marshall, and we have Peter Robson representing Orange 360. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, for putting up with us again. Okay, thanks for putting up with us again. We've seen you a few times. The reason Caddy and I are here tonight is because we're seeking your support. I think you've given it once before, but final support for a program which we believe is extremely important for the future. The program which you're familiar with is one which is being jointly done with Cabonne Council and with Blaney, both who have already committed $50,000. And what it's about is to ensure that we, as best we possibly can, are able to handle what will undoubtedly be a downturn in employment over the coming months. I think you all agree, and if you don't, you can have a crack at me, that we all, and I'm including you here, have done pretty well in terms of job creation, particularly in the visitor economy sector over the last few years. You will know that there has been 6,000 jobs created, and there are 6,000 jobs in this sector right now. And you'll probably also know that when the first COVID shutdown occurred, around the same number of jobs were lost. Now those jobs, there is a difference in the area that we're talking about. The first 6,000 jobs in that economy, the visitor economy, are in the Cabonne, Blaney, Orange area. The jobs lost is more broadly cast in the Central West. However, it makes the point that if we see a major downturn again, these jobs are very, very vulnerable. It's not only the jobs in this economy, the visitor economy, but it's the multiplier effect outside. I recall a number of years ago being asked by the golf club, the Orange Golf Club here, to give my advice or views on a big project that they were looking at to create an 80-room hotel at Dundry League, or in addition to Dundry League. What really happened there is it didn't stack up, and there were some pretty smart cookies that had a look at that, people that were used to putting new hotels in. It didn't stack up with it unless there was going to be additional investment around the golf course. Today, fast forward to today, and you, I know, have had a number of applications, many of which you have passed for new hotels. big hotels, not just small hotels, big hotels. And the construction jobs that go with those hotels, plus the smaller accommodation areas, the upgrades that are going on in this district for even Airbnbs, which are not my favourite topic, I have to tell you, but in generally speaking, are all added jobs to that 6,000. However, we've all got to be concerned. What's going to happen when JobKeeper goes or when JobKeeper's modified? JobKeeper is supporting many, many jobs, not only in this visitor economy, but more broadly. I heard the Treasurer the other day talking about unemployment going to greater than 10%. He in fact said real unemployment will be around 15%. Now, I'm looking around the table and I see people like Russell and others who will very, very much remember when unemployment was greater than 10%. And youth unemployment was 25%. So this is a situation which we've got to work extremely hard to avoid. And we think that the program that we're putting before you, and which you've read and you've discussed and you've had out for notice with the community, will be of assistance in ameliorating this. It's not going to stop it, because this is going to happen. There is going to be JobKeeper go. There is going to be significant unemployment. And for those of you that were around during that period and have seen all this before, I at the time was National Secretary of a big trade union and was right in the middle of it. If you ever want to see potential social unrest, that's when you get it. When you get large groups of unemployed people and particularly youth unemployment. So we think that this program that we're talking about is going to help a lot to ameliorate that. It's not going to stop it, but it's going to help to ameliorate it. We've got to be on the front foot because there are many, many other communities doing exactly the same thing. So that they've had a situation when in New South Wales, when the limits were lifted in the first week in June, where there's been significant visitation. And just on that, and as a sidebar, I want to assure the council that I myself, as chairman of Orange 360, Caddy, and many, many others have worked very hard and I think done a great job in ensuring the COVID-19 rules are obeyed. You would have seen me out in the press giving it to my constituency. In fact, I got a couple of calls telling me I was too tough. But the truth of the matter is that we have to be vigilant and we have to ensure that the rules, the COVID rules, are being obeyed. And it was very pleasing to me to see, and to, in fact, met because they came up to our own cellar door, the licensing police who during Firefest went
Peter,
right through
I'll just
the
have to get an extension.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Move. MC Councillor Munro, all in
I won't
favour?
be long. I'm nearly finished. But I just wanted to say that there's been a lot of work done, and I want to assure the council a lot of continuing work being done to ensure that we are all working with the COVID rules. But coming back, and finally, Mr. Mayor, so I will finish. I just want to reinforce the point that I think we've done a very good job, and I think a lot of jobs are being created, but there is some significant storm clouds ahead. And the program that we're putting before you is there for us to be on the front foot, act. A lot of others will be acting, but we've got a great base because people now know this district, and we've got to build on that knowledge and understanding, and we've got to act decisively to ensure we're on the front foot to do the best we possibly can in this situation to make sure this visitor economy is sustained.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. You're allowed to sit down. It's not like school. Thank you very much for that. Our next speaker is Richard Hattersley. Is Richard there?
Not on Zoom, is he?
Not on Zoom. And we have Kate Gray from 21 Gorman Road. The organisation is Peter Smith Terry White Pharmacy, and the topic for discussion is rezoning of land in the hospital precincts. Thanks, Kate.
I appreciate the opportunity to address you all tonight. I also appreciate the need for a small supermarket out in the Shirley development as referred to in the planning that I've had access to. However, the proposal to rezone the SFR out at the Bloomfield precinct to a cap of 0.185 allows for a retail space 2,923 square metres. This rezoning size does not limit the development to a small supermarket and perhaps a bottle shop and a specialty shop, example being a news agency, but actually allows for 2,923 metres square of retail space overall, and it doesn't bind any developer to a multi-shop development, but allows construction of a large supermarket. Now, Orange is currently well serviced by 6 large supermarkets, which is, in this environment especially, is more than sufficient for our current and foreseeable future population. There are currently more than 15 vacant shops, retail shops in the CBD, as well as, and there were another one added last week, as well as a significant vacancy of upstairs rentable space. Development now or in the near future will negatively impact the CBD in my mind and its shopping ambience. The main street of Orange is the gateway of our city, and empty and boarded up shops do not showcase the city as being a prosperous and thriving economic community. Business owners in the CBD contribute greatly to the rateable pool of funds that Council collects and have done so over a long and extended period of time. My submission is that this rezoning be denied, but if Council cannot see it and sees it otherwise, then at least consider reducing the size of the SFR cap to 0.1. This allows for a small IGA or similar that would meet the current needs of the area, as a large supermarket should only be considered when the market and the population of the said area are large enough to support a building of such size. A large-scale supermarket development will not only have a negative effect on the CBD, but on established local retail businesses, owners, property owners, and most importantly, the employees of the various businesses. And in my mind, it also goes against the spirit of the Council's future city plan, which is to activate and improve the entire ambience of the central business district. We all know also been no mention of the traffic issues will ensure with a large-scale supermarket development on the proposed rezone site. We know that the current traffic conditions around the hospital precinct are already problematic, to say the least. Will the developer be responsible for the expenses of sorting the traffic issues, or will it be the ratepayers of Orange who will be responsible for the cost? We've evidenced what happens when a development takes place on this as a satellite development, and the ensuing traffic problems have previously and currently been evidenced in the North Orange development. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Kate. The council meeting will now resume with 3.1, and that's confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council.
Move the minutes, Mr Mayor.
Second it, Mr Mayor.
Witness seconded, Councillor Munro. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Now proceed to notices of motion, and the first one is notice of motion, exhibition for public consultation, 4.1. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This notice of motion is basically the result of myself being contacted by numerous people on
Second it, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, second. You'll second. Thanks, Councillor
Thank
Whitten.
you, Councillor Whitten. What I was going to say was this notice of motion is basically the result of me being contacted by numerous people on an ongoing basis who were seeking more information regarding the timing of projects, including development applications, etc., or significant projects. Councillors will recall the Community Participation Plan, which we adopted back in December 2019. And I would suggest this notice of motion could work in conjunction with that Community Participation Plan. I believe that the residents would benefit from the public information sessions. Review are being conducted no later than the halfway point of the exhibition period that would be applicable to the significant projects and initiatives. I believe that these public information sessions would provide people with a better understanding of the significant projects and initiatives. It would also help to streamline the process, as the plan could be explained to all interested parties on the day and also avoid the duplication of work for some council staff. As I indicated, I'll be proposing 2 public sessions on the same date to cater for people available to attend at lunchtime or at approximately 5:30 p.m. It'd be after work. Councillors would also be aware themselves the amount of time it takes to read the full documents that are being processed regarding these major initiatives and DAs, etc. Residents are also required to read the same information, which could limit their ability to lodge a submission if they desire to do so. What I've been told and when people have rang me up, what they've indicated is that they're confused by the volume of information which they're provided, asked to analyse. Although they want to make a submission, they require a better understanding of the issues which are involved in the DA application. So I'd be seeking council support to accept this note of motion which I put forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Millardo. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this motion, but just wondering whether the Councillor Miletto would, and a small amendment, which would be to, at the end there, to say information sessions in the first half of the exhibition period. The reason why I'd like to move that amendment, I have taken it for...
I'll second it for discussion first. You got to have discussion. You got to second it for discussion. I'll second it, Mr Mayor.
Is that sometimes the halfway point may coincide with, may not be the most appropriate time. It may coincide with school holidays. It may, if it's right, you know, in between Christmas and New Year, it might coincide with the Easter break, something like that. So, and I understand the intent of the motion is to information and as possible in the process, so that they have the opportunity to go back and read the papers in. So it's a very small amendment. I don't think it's. I'm happy for it to go through as is, but just putting that forward as a possible slight amendment to the wording.
Could I hear what the?
Just to change it, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to accept the amendment. Okay. Thank you.
It'll be easier. It's happy with that. Is the seconder happy with that?
I am, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Taylor.
Mr Mayor, I support what's being proposed, the spirit of it. My only question is directed to the CEO is given that, you know, exhibition periods and so forth are part of the local government process, is there any impediment? Is there any legislative requirements? Like, are we not obliging by the legislation, the relevant legislation as far as exhibition? I see what Councillor Miletto's doing, but I mean, we need to be careful here, because I mean, if we put it through, we'll come back with the Department of Local Government saying, look, great idea, but you can't really do it.
Yeah, I think Councillor Miletto, Mr Chair, made it clear that we should incorporate it into a sort of a policy, a procedure. The answer is no, we won't, and we will ensure it won't. The spirit of the Act is to just do more consultation if you can, so we'll make sure it's in order.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Right, listen, I'm going to support either one. It didn't matter which one it went, but I think we should live in a bit of the real world. The real world was housing plus developments that went through the chamber here. The real world was the Hill Street Blues episode. That's the real world, because when the public get up in arms, they come up and fill that chamber there. The one reason why the chamber's not full tonight is because COVID-19. But that is where the thing is, and they then start to get their own meetings and have all those type of things there. But I do congratulate Councillor for his efforts in putting it there. But the general public and the general ratepayer will tell you when something is wrong, when we must listen.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. I have a question of the CEO, or perhaps a question of Councillor Miletto. Just where do you draw the line? Does this apply to anything that's advertised in the paper?
Well,
have to?
No, Mr Chair, I think what we'll do is work up a procedure with some criteria and come back to you and just really get stuck into it.
Why I say that, what may be significant to me isn't significant to you. And I think if it's for absolutely everything, everything could run a real danger here. So I'd like something sort of put around it,
Yeah, certainly, Mr Mayor, it's not aimed at every DA, and we would need to work on as the CEO has indicated, a definition of what is significant and etc. So,
yeah, I'm happy with that.
Mr Mayor, I'd also like to, that initial period, I'd also like to see the cost, because this would come at a cost, a significant cost, I'd imagine, with staff time. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give you an indication, Mr Chair, and the lunchtime sessions won't cost us, but we'll provide an answer to that. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, I think we've had enough debate. Sorry, Councillor Romano.
I'm just, my concern, I can see the spirit of the motion, but I have a big concern with, and I don't mean to be rude by this, but there's always seems to be a silent minority, well, a vocal minority that can, as you said, Mr Mayor, delay projects or delay developments for, it could be for a personal reason. So my question to the CEO is the process correct at the moment? Why do we need to change it? There's 28 days exhibition, gives people plenty of time to write a submission if they're not happy with it. I believe I read in the paper that Councillor Miletto was aiming at providing lunch for some of the residents that come in and have it during a lunchtime period. I mean, I don't know where we're going with that. I'm not going to support it. I think that the process we've got in place at the moment...
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
No, there's no point of order. He's allowed to have his opinion.
The process we've got in place at the moment has been working well. The last thing I want to see is developments delayed due to personal vendettas. That's what worries me. I won't be supporting it. Simple.
Just at a point of clarification.
Yep.
I'm not sure. Thank you for your comments, Councillor. I'm not sure what article you were reading. But nowhere in that article did I see that I was offering lunch to anybody, and I find the comment quite insultive. It suggests that I was. So I'd like you to retract that comment, because me, it just cast a slur on my character that I'd be so stupid to do such a thing. So I don't know where you're reading, but if you could point me in the direction that you were, I'd...
Okay, I'll withdraw it, Councillor Miletto, but I will try and find it and perhaps show you personally.
Thank you very much.
I'll withdraw it.
I think we've had enough debate on it. We know what the motion is and the amendment to the motion. All in favour? Hands, please. Against? Thank you very much.
Councillor Romano against, yeah.
Councillor Romano, okay. Did you get Councillor?
Councillor McRae for.
Yeah, sorry.
That, Mr Mayor, will come back to the policy.
Yeah. Yep. Now, notice 4.2 is a notice of motion donation of unspent catering money. I had declared an interest, but I'm staying in the chamber, but I won't be voting on it.
I'll second it for discussion.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I don't have to talk on this at all. I don't want to lose the debate like I've seen too many times with people stand up and go on. It's just the money that we usually have allocated for our the meal after the meeting. I'd just like to see it go out to the people who are supplying food for the less fortunate around the town. So that I don't have to say anything else.
Councillor Hamling, any other speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Kevin, I want to support it, but I just asked the mover and the seconder whether they add and B to it, because it's a community organisation which is run by a few businesses which provide meals over here every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, their staff come here and give their own voluntary time and all those type of things there. And I don't think we've even, as a council, we've even ever assisted them, that type of thing. And I know they've come to me on a number of occasions, but I think that there, and I've been over there a number of times when that's happened, and the room is full. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that we do include that.
He's agreed to it.
Thank you, Councillor Henley.
Mr Mayor?
Councillor McRae. Sorry, look, I'll have to get someone from this side of the room to look. It's very hard for me looking over there, actually.
That's all right. I'll jump in when there's a pause if I feel you might have missed me. Look, I've got two questions. The first is what the quantum is in terms of the amount. And secondly, just checking in terms of the governance issue, and I do intend to vote for this, but I guess I want to check that we are permitted to donate without a request from these organisations, and that is in accordance with the Act in terms of the distribution of funds.
Through Mr Chair, look, yes, you can make this one-off donation. I don't see a problem with that. In terms of the quantum, I removed the money out of it. I was just concerned that we'd be giving away the game, as we're trying not to do these days, on various expenditures.
So I'm just confirming you're not willing to disclose how much is spent on councillor catering?
Yeah, because we have a sort of competitive process when we go to catering, and we're trying not to disclose that sort of budget. I can give you I think you can imagine.
That answer your question?
Well, we're going to make us.
I'm assuming this is only for the councillor catering that's provided in the chamber.
Correct.
After meetings. It's not for those councillors who do go to other sites after meetings.
No,
We pay for our own.
Mr Chair, it's the catering in the ante room.
Doctor's fees we get for being sick the next day is okay.
All right, look, I think I'll put the motion.
Mayor, I think it's opportune to just point out too that we have not had catering here since the start of COVID, which is way back in March. There has been absolutely no catering, and any councillor that I don't, but I have probably on one or two occasions, but any councillors that go to other venues, which are really, I would imagine, if people, they're just ordinary outlets, takeaway outlets. It's always borne by the councillors themselves. Has there ever been any suggestion council, i.e. the ratepayers, fund other outlets?
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Show of hands, please. Against? Thank you. We move on to item 5, which are general reports, with the first one being, you can't move it until I say what it is, Councillor Munro. This one is 5.1 of the recommendations and resolutions from policy committees. Councillor Nugent, seconded Councillor Turner. All in favour? Unanimous. And 5.2 are the statement of investments for August 2020, item 5.2.
Happy to move it, Mr Chairman.
Move Councillor Duffy. Seconded Councillor Romano. All in favour, show of hands, please. Thank you very much.
It's great.
5.3 is a request for financial assistance, Orange Wine Month. 0.3. Councillor Nugent.
Happy to move the
I'll second it.
recommendation with an amendment.
So hold it. You're moving them.
Yet, so I better not second it.
He can't second until he knows what I think.
Sorry. The amendment would be to...
So you're moving an amendment.
Moving the motion with a small change, that council resolves that funding of $20,000 be made from the event sponsorship program.
I don't think you can actually do that. You've got a motion there. You'd have to move the motion or let someone else move the motion, then you move an amendment. I'll move the motion. Councillor Hamling, seconder. Councillor Miletto.
Okay. Then can I move an amendment that we increase the amount to $20,000? That someone discussion?
No.
Second.
I'll second it for discussion, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
You're not.
Yep.
So the request that has come from the Orange Region Vignerons Association is for $20,000, where the staff are unable to make that recommendation because of the policy, which is put a cap of $10,000 on funding from that particular, from the event sponsorship program. But the request has come in. This particular industry has been very hard hit during COVID times and hasn't got a lot of support from the federal government. I think that council has been, with budget and with other activities, making quite an effort to stimulate the local economy. And if this money goes to support those local businesses that are in the food and wine, but the wine industry in particular, then I think it's money well spent. The total amount of money in that particular budget is $200,000, as it says on page 51. And so far we have commitments out of that fund of only $13,500 for two of them. So it's not as though we're using up all of the money that is left in that account. There's still going to be plenty of money left in that fund. And at this particular time, I think we should be doing everything we can to support local businesses. And I'd like to see, the proposal for Orange Wine Month is to have a lot of sort of smaller, hopefully more affordable, family-oriented events during Wine Month. So you know, and if that's the intent, if that's the case, I think this $20,000 will be well spent in terms of providing activities for members of the local community to go to, but also in supporting that part of our local industry.
If I can speak next, I'd speak against the amendment, mainly because we have a policy and that was developed where we looked at our funding. And if you have a look on page 52 there, where it's incubator, event flagship, event development, and in that the decision was made that the funding range is from 1,000 to 10,000. Now, if we start changing the rules here, again, we open the floodgates for all sorts of reasons. Now, secondly, with Wine Week, which we all support, we have no doubt on that. Don't forget, we've put a fair amount of council funding towards Orange 360, which also helps in the promotion of a number of wine events in Orange, Food Week and Wine Week, and a number of other events. And I think what we'd actually have to do to be able to extend that beyond 10,000 is have a change in our policy on what the funding range was within those without opening the floodgates, so to speak. Another speaker?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I want to speak against both, actually, the amendment and the motion. Look, this is all about, now I want to support this in a way, but not at this very actual time, because we've got COVID-19. All about. We're still not allowed to go into Queensland, and no one from Queensland doesn't really want to come down here because they get locked up when they go back up there. I've spoken to nurses who've sat alongside people with COVID-19 and died, and they tell you what it's like. This is what this is about. And I'll tell you a few other things is, 3 or 4 bus drivers drove around the city and the outskirts of the towns and the vendors. Most of them were full. I drove past one every day. Station, and there's about 40 or 50 cars there. Talking about if we have all the rules in place, but the idea is to keep this thing away from us. It's not out here. I've been very vocal about Paul Toole or not against him, but supporting his idea to have the grads not out here and let them have dancing, but don't let people from Sydney come out here. We can't stop them, but they're coming here now. You've only got to drive up Summer Street of a Saturday afternoon and you can see them walking around the street. They're looking at the buildings, they have a look around. You know they're not from here.
Hold it, Councillor. Can I just pull you up there?
I'm allowed to speak, Mr Mayor.
But this has got nothing to do to visitation to Orange from people from Sydney.
I'm not voting to give money to Orange vendors at this moment because they are promoting visitors to come here. There's a reason why. And I'm telling you the reason why, because they are coming here now. You don't need to promote them to come here. Only got to go down the street. You can tell by the looks of the cars that come here, and they're Maseratis or whatever they come up here in. I'm not an expert. They're coming, but I'm being consistent.
They're not buses,
the fact
that's what
is,
you know.
I'm being consistent in the fact that we don't want the opportunity for the virus to come out here, because there's only going to be 1 or 2 cases here, and it's going to explode.
Yep.
Good luck to Victoria. They've done the hard yards. There's no deaths down there today, and they're celebrating. Let's not have the same situation and give it the opportunity to occur here by our assistance.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. That was very enlightening. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I fully support. I think you summed it up pretty well, Mr Mayor, but look, the bottom line is $10,000 is a very generous donation. Very generous donation. I'm concerned, councillors getting concerned that there's still money in the kitty in the budget. We'll soon find some worthy cause to spend that on, and there'd be plenty of charities and that lined up that could use that money. So I wouldn't have any conscience about it. I think $10,000 is a very, very generous donation. I would imagine that the Orange Region Vineyards Association would be.
Councillor Taylor. Any other speakers?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor McRae.
This is, I think, an interesting dilemma. I agree with, surprisingly, I agree with some of the concerns Councillor Duffy has raised. However, I believe that the $10,000 that's proposed is within the guidelines of the sponsorship policy. This is an area of our local economy which has sought and is able to apply for this funding, and they've stated it's for promotion and marketing. Perhaps it will inspire other areas of our local economy who are impacted by COVID restrictions or by recent events with bushfires and smoke taint and impacts on tourism, or indeed impacts just on their economic activity, to similarly get together and to be able to apply to council for support. What it also comes down to, though, is that we as individuals have choices about what events we personally engage in, what activities we attend, where we choose to travel, and what local events we indeed want to support at the moment. This motion is to support a group of vignerons who've gotten together and they've made amendments to what's been a long-standing series of wine week events, and they're running it as a wine month. I do have concerns that I won't be participating in the events that they're running, but I am here to make a decision about whether we support this sector of the local economy, which also impacts on Blaney and Cabon. It's a tough one, but I will be supporting this motion on this occasion.
Councillor McRae. Okay, I'll put the amendment first. All in favour? Against? The amendment's lost. I put the motion. All in favour? Against? Against? Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. 5.4 is the Local Strategic Planning Statement 2020.
Happy to move the recommendations, Mr.
I have a mover in Councillor Nugent, a second in Councillor Taylor. Look, just comment, I suppose, is that I read through it twice, and then actually I went back to having a look at the responses, and the something to 39 additions to it, and I found some of the responses to what some of the people wrote in duplicated, very, very duplicated. And I do think in some areas it is kowtowing to certain minority groups. Do put in to some of these things. But I think the document itself overall was pretty good. I think it looks at all things from transport to footpaths, it looks to green space. I find it interesting, again, making sure that we have adequate green space, but no mention in the report that we're 5 times the Australian average, 3 times more than Canberra, more green space than most cities or towns in Australia, but a document such as this makes out that we need more. And I think that just gives ammo sometimes. Some groups that don't actually look at how much green space we have in Orange in the form of a whole range of areas. And I've done that work and I've done those sums, and I just find it's frustrating sometimes to continually told that we should be doing this, we should be doing that, because we haven't got this. And in fact, in a report like this, I would like to see that go back and highlighted in the areas where we are really, if you like, battling above our weight, so to speak. And that is one area where we are well above what is regarded as an Australian standard or a state standard. So I think some of these documents sometimes should point out where you are well above it or where you're well below it. In the report, it does point out where we need to lift our bar, and that's fine. We can aspire to that, but I also think we have to have due recognition of the areas where we're doing a good job. Thanks, Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll be supporting it, but some of the changes here are so far out and unbelievable. I don't even understand some of them. For instance, item 22, council support urban farming, particularly on flood-prone or otherwise constrained land, to showcase production systems to the visitor economy, mitigate the urban heat island effect, and contribute local produce with reduced food miles. What the hell does that mean? Can someone explain what that means? We're voting for it.
We have.
Mr CEO.
Mr Hodges is going to...
Mr Hodges.
Mr Hodges.
I thought that was the best one, Russell.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Appreciate the question.
No, you don't.
There are a couple of questions there. Those ones did come from some of the government departments. And they
sorry, so you didn't make them all up. They've come through, right, okay.
There's a lot of government department submissions, and equally, like the Mayor said, there are areas where we've been doing a lot of work and we are in front. So that's why I didn't mind taking on board and including there the extra items in the list of works to be done, because some of it we actually already have, and so it's a matter of just highlighting that we've got those statements already. Certainly, we don't have the urban farming matter, and you could see that the submitters didn't quite check our local planning controls prior to making the submission, because it was talking about in flood-prone areas, and we're at the top of a hill, so we have very little, and most of our flooding areas are our parks anyway. So they're already our heat sinks, and as they are now, so I wasn't too particularly perturbed by those missions. We can work with them in our development controls. This is just to link our land use planning with our strategic planning that we've done for years.
But my comment is there. Look, if we've got it in the document, people pick it up and say, why aren't you doing this? And we spend a lot of time trying to explain to people. The point that Councillor Turner made is a good one. In the floodplain areas, we were well ahead of the pack here in sort of looking at retention basins that are there, flooding, but also sports fields and nice green open spaces for people to use. I mean, there's nothing in here about that. As I said, nothing in there about, if you like, Ploughman's Valley wetlands, and all the green space that comes with them is down there, with that project down there. And the other thing interesting in this, two of the biggest heat banks that we have in Orange, two golf courses that are completely looked after by other people, and that's Wentworth and Country League. Don't get a mention in here, but why I mentioned both those golf courses, because I've looked since this COVID's been going on, the amount of people that walk and use those golf courses for exercise and walk through them. Now, other people pay the fees.
I haven't quite finished yet, Mr.
Keep going.
Another one there, item 3. Council require new subdivisions, greenfield estates and rezoning proposals to include measures that respond to and incorporate green grids and networks. Now, we've got a number of developers in town at the moment who often complain about the amount of red tape, what they've got to go through to get developments put in place. How much is this going to add to that pile of red tape, and how much is it going to cost for extra cost per block in all these subdivisions. I know we can't get an answer on that tonight, but this would frighten the hell out of a developer. He's got to comply, he or she has to comply with all these, plus what we've already got in place.
Through you, Mr Mayor, generally with our development control plans, we'll have master plans in different areas. They will include walkways and matters like that. And when we do the larger developments, say up in North Orange, as we've seen, we've maintained a lot of the trees and have the walkways, but I understand what your comments about.
Finished.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy.
Do it.
I just see it as a motherhood statement. What's the the thing I don't like about it is what the mayor's saying. You know, and Councillor Turner's saying that if you're a developer, you come in and say they read this and say, oh, hang on, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. It's really there's nothing binding in it, is there? It's just a motherhood statement.
Yes, the link.
Unless it's covered by the Planning Act or anything like that, it's worth nothing. I mean, there's some of these things here, especially when you come to those green things. I mean, as you said, there's no recognition of anything we're already doing. Mayor refers to we're 5 times the national average, 3 times better than Canberra. We're doing a hell of a lot better than most other places. I mean, there's just so much there, and it nearly turn people away from coming here.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the purpose is not to measure what we are doing. It's more just talking about what actions we can take and continue on our directions. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of our land use planning controls, like the development control plan, already address some of these matters. So it's not a big stretch, and the reason why it doesn't have the detail of what we've done is it's just a linking document between strategy and land use. It's intriguing why some of the feedback has been in the tone it's been, but we've managed to manipulate it in, so we'll certainly take it into consideration, but it's first rendition. Will be
my other
reviewed.
comment, Mr Mayor, my other comment, just to follow up on that, is that is that you can just imagine what's going to happen in the chamber there when people come up and they're going to say, listen, on page 22 of your motherhood statement, it says this, you've got to abide by it. I mean, and they're going to take it as law. It's just strange.
I think Councillor Nugent was next.
I suppose a couple of questions. I actually think that the work the staff have done to incorporate the comments from or the submissions into the document is actually very good. And I started going through this consolidated list of changes and went tick, 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 tick. And I think I agree with the vast majority of what's there. I understand it is that linking document between LEP, DCP and the state environmental planning policies. It's something that the New South Wales government has required us to do. So, Councillor Turner, if you want to blame anyone, you can blame the state government for it. But it is a document we have to have in place, and I think it'll be a very strong statement of principles and ideals for the city. Just a question of process. So these consolidated changes aren't in the document as yet, is that correct? But if we pass it tonight, these consolidated changes will be after tonight. Is that the process from here?
Yes, Mr Mayor, through you, that is correct. I didn't want to amend the lengthy document, or the document that we've done to date. In case that wasn't the direction of council, but so that's why I've left it. So it'll probably take us a couple of weeks, and then we'll send it off to the department for their noting.
Look, if I can just make one other comment. Look, I have no worries. We have to do it, and I think it's an excellent document. But I do get frustrated again by inconsistency with government and government departments. Now, I've sat in this chamber for 30 years where I've seen a lot about protection of good agricultural land and horticultural lands. And whooshka bang, a government department can come in over the top of you, or the government, and say, no, that's of state significance. You can put a housing estate on that now, or you can do this, or you can do that. Now, have a look at a number of the SEPs, and you're very, very familiar with SEPs. They come in with SEPs that are supposed to be statewide, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, well, that SEP that's been written in Sydney will work out in Dubbo or Orange or wherever. Then there's a lack of consistency in a lot of our planning instruments, and the people that put the inconsistency in there, or are responsible for the inconsistency, are the government departments that put this feedback into some of these things. Now, I've seen where the DPI or the Department of Ag come out, no, you can't do this, it's prime agricultural land, horticultural land, protect all of our good farming lands, which I agree with, and all of a sudden have a look at the development across the state of New South Wales that's occurred in some of our best agriculture and horticultural soils.
Mr Mayor, just
Sorry, Councillor McRae and then Councillor Taylor. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I agree with the comments that there's some really good stuff in here. I'm glad to see there's sort of nothing controversial like koalas. But I also would note, particularly, I'm pleased to see the inclusion in item or recommendation 29 in relation to the Department of Education being involved in consultation regarding population growth and school infrastructure. I believe that's an area which many of the members of our community are concerned about. As a growing city, many young families, and particularly with a demographic that's higher than the state average in that particularly primary school age population, I'm really pleased to see that that's included, as I know that that's a concern for many. So we couldn't go far enough in terms of increasing consultation with school education as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks, Councillor McRae. Councillor
Taylor. Just a quick comment, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm a bit surprised actually, so some of the more experienced councillors in here are surprised by bureaucratic jargon that's contained in some of these reports. I mean, as we all know, we've seen many of these type of documents come through over many years, and a lot of them is to provide wriggle room too, from a directive of the state government. They put these clauses in and motherhood statements in so that if there is any conjecture or any argument that they can fall back on some of these clauses. Look, but the one thing I know over many years is these documents don't fall into place. They have an work that's gone into them. Never going to be perfect, and you're always going to be able to pick parts of them that don't seem to make sense. But the fact is, Mr Mayor, we all know that every local government area in New South Wales, every council in New South Wales, they have one of these, and they'll all contain these type of statements that, quite frankly, for most of us who like to deal in common sense.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Look, but I will congratulate all the staff for the document and putting it together. There's a hell of a lot of work in there, and I thank them very much. And what will happen, that won't have to come back here again. They will just put these in within the document. Okay. All in favour? Hands, please. Against? Unanimous. 5.5 is the project activities for September 2000.
There's a recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Duffy.
Congratulate the General Manager on this one, but I do have one criticism. It's a big criticism. I went to the eye doctor today and I got a very good eye rating of rate 7, which I think is fairly high according to him. But I'm not a possum. I can't read one of this small all the time. Can we cover it in an A3 size or whatever the case may be?
Take it on notice, Mr Mayor.
Take that on notice. Can we have it in 4 times that font for Councillor Duffy? No, it is a little bit bigger, but can I say, look, I think this is an excellent report. It's a new report that we have in. This is the second or third time, but it's a good way of keeping track where we are, and it is a very good way of the community actually being able to go and have a look where those projects are up, whether it be footpaths or roads or our other major projects. So once again, big thank you and well done to all the staff. All in favour? Against?
This is arising, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Turner. Yep.
Page 289, where it mentions the auditorium and the planetarium.
Yep.
Could I call for a report to give me some information on the following? One, provide and identify all funding options for the proposed conservatorium and planetarium.
Yep.
And 2, reaffirm the federal government offer of the $10 million that's on the books at the moment. And 3, estimate of the value of the current site of the conservatorium in Hill Street. And 4, details of any other funding already set aside for this project.
Cool. Okay. Yep. That'll come back to us for the next council meeting. Okay. Thanks. Mr Maunder.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah, sure. But you could do an estimate. Yeah, sure.
We have
an estimate to be okay.
We have a historic estimate. We could.
That sounds practical.
But that might just be an estimate on the costing for what it's worth up there, but the other costs would be there.
Rough guidelines, that's all.
We can rattle up the state government for the shortfall. So what, I hope
All
you're
part of
getting
the
it.
plan.
Yeah. 5.6 is the Local Government New South Wales Conference 2020.
Mr. Mayor.
Second it, Mr. Mayor.
It was moved by Councillor Newt, seconded by Councillor Munro. All in favour? Sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the recommendation, the first part of the recommendation is to identify motions under the motion categories provided by Local Government New South Wales to propose for consideration at the conference. We have two motions there, and I apologise I didn't get round to drafting something prior to the closing date for papers, but I understand and appreciate the intent of Councillor Duffy's motion. But I just wonder whether we can expand it out a bit. I have circulated a copy of the proposed motion. Everyone should have a copy in front of them. To either replace or supplement or add to Councillor Duffy's motion. Happy to read it out for the benefit of the live streaming and for the audience in the gallery. So the first part is that Local Government New South Wales undertake a review of temporary changes to council governance arrangements as a result of COVID-19, including online meeting attendance, with a view to identifying positive impacts and any issues such as limited options for voting in mayoral or deputy mayoral elections, which picks up on the concerns that Duffy has expressed. And secondly, that subject to the outcome of this review, Local Government New South Wales lobby the New South Wales Government to implement permanent changes such as to allow for the option of online meeting attendance in circumstances and additional options for voting in mayoral and deputy mayoral elections. So I think the reason why I'm sort of putting that forward, we've just been through, the whole, we're still in the midst of the whole COVID-19 situation. It's had a lot of negative impacts on society in general and on our community in particular. But I think there's also some positives that have come out of it. And the option to attend meetings from time to time under specific circumstances, as Councillor McRae is doing tonight, via Zoom or online means, I think is a good thing in terms of aiding accessibility to the role of councillor. There may be people with particular disabilities who would struggle to be here in the chamber all of the time, but they shouldn't be excluded from the option of being a councillor. So I'd like to see what I'm asking for is Local Government New South Wales to sort of do a review of what has happened during the time of COVID, and are there some positive impacts that have come out? Are there some issues that can be addressed and implement some changes going forward?
Well, if I may, I support that totally, and I think I've said 4 or 5 times in the last 2 months that I do agree with Zoom meetings, which opens up the opportunities for a broader range of people being able to run for local government, particularly younger people that may have children at home or because of work or because of a disability or whatever it may be, or happen to be away work. I know Councillor Mileto has to travel a fair bit. I used to travel miles and miles and miles, and I used to put a valve trying to get back from Broken Hill to here to a council meeting because I thought it was quite important. I think that offers the opportunity up. So I will support them. I'd like to see what your voting will be in the near future. So I support it totally. I think the world has changed, and I think it's shown some different ways of being able to operate. So I'd support them. Councillor Duffy.
I'm not fussed about either one, whether they both go down there, because if you've been down to local government conference, which a number of you have, and yourself as well, Mr Mayor, every other council in Australia or New South Wales is actually addressing the same issue that we're all talking about. It comes across the issue which the last pandemic we had, what was 1913 or something very similar to that. So
18.
It's not a rare occurrence. But I do disagree with you, Mr Mayor, in your comment. I'd much rather see him in the chamber. I want to have a look at him when we have a bit of a tiff. I just want to see the smile on the face or the frown or the sort of thing. So I'd much rather see us in the chamber all the time. But I do accept the fact that under a pandemic situation, the rules need to be to cover those type of things there. So I support it, but I do say that every council in New South Wales will be addressing the same issue, and local government in New South Wales are not idiots, and sometimes we do think the office of local governments are, but I think they'll come up with something.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other?
Sometimes the governments are too.
Any other speakers?
I was happy over there.
Sorry, Councillor.
I was just saying it's all basically been said, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Okay. All in favour? Against? I think if you just work in conjunction with the CEO to get the wording that you want to go down those motions, and they'll get them off.
Yeah, it's those.
Okay. Yeah. You're happy with that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 5.7 is the draft planning agreement. The Towak Equine Precinct. So we've got a mover in Councillor Hamling, second in Councillor Munro.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask to Mr. Hodges first. My first question is impact if the overpass or the underpass, whatever you want to call it, it leaves there. Okay, do we have the opportunity to vary the $20,000 limit? Can we bring it just down to say 15,000 or whatever the case may be, and take away the overpass? Please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's an underpass proposed with the development. It's considered a key part, and if we want to get into the technical details of road safety, I'll need to defer to Director of Technical Services for that.
Can we just clarify, it's an underpass. We're not talking about an overpass.
I'm not fussed about whether it's over or under. What it is, what I'm saying is
it's under.
The dollar value. Can that be varied just back to 15, or what can we come back if we take away the underpass?
The cost is there on page 304 for an underpass to go in under the Southern Feeder Road, the proposed Southern Feeder Road. To allow for that, the cost is $374,000.
It'd be a reduction of around about $10,000 per block.
Or it'd be 12, it depends on the amount of blocks they pull out, but that's where we've gone to a voluntary planning agreement.
I want to speak against the resolution, and in saying that, Mr. Mayor, and I'm quite happy just on the field of the meeting to move an amendment to address the issue, is that I look at the situation of where in New South Wales, passes and overpasses. No. There's one at Wellington on the McGirr Rental Way, where there be double trucks and all those sort of things. No, there's not one there. Bathurst, Byers Park. Is there one at Wagga? Is there one at Ballarat where we visit, Mr. Mayor? Let me tell you where there was one. There was one on James Bruce Drive going into Rose Hill. Not there anymore, not allowed to be used. Traffic on the horses. Something's there. But on the same issue, again here, you have the Pony Club operating on the same site, the gated community process where they have to have their horses on a float to bring them to the event. So they're not walking them on the road and all those type of issues there. Now you look at the plan here where you've got different tracks coming through here, which is probably very similar to what Cliff and Grove are talking about with their bridle tracks and all these other fancy names they've got out there for their horses to go along. Who's going to maintain those? At what cost do they get once they start to get blackberries and all these type of things and go overgrown like the one at the end of the overflow? Who's going to maintain all this type of stuff there? Who's going to look after that? But as I said, I think it's extreme overkill with having an underpass or an overpass. Doesn't matter which one it is, and you know it just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all across New South Wales everywhere. It's not there, but all of a sudden in Orange it's different. It doesn't make sense at all. And to say that's going to be the part of the ring road, we may as well call it instead of give it other fancy names. It is, and there are going to be trucks go through there. But what happens when a horse does going underneath or over the top? What it is when it does both. Reason why they closed the one down at James Roos Drive, which is going into Rose Hill. I just think it's a huge overkill. And it was one of the ones that we spoke about when we came here before. We passed it to go off to the Office of Local Government, and they've now sent it back to us. As I said, I just don't know anywhere else in New South Wales and even across Australia they have these type of things here that make it.
So they
have it in Doomben.
You're against the motion?
I'm against the motion. I'm speaking against it.
Now, just before we get another speaker,
Happy to.
that's the CEO. He wants to withdraw too.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we did a bit of an analysis this afternoon. Can we ask that councillors strike recommendation number 2 on page 304? We worked a better way to do it. So the actual staff recommendation is 1, 3 and 4. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, we'll hold it with Councillor Whitten next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise in support of the motion. Look, an underpass to transit horses under what is going to be a major road in Orange is common sense. And my understanding of the one in James Roos Drive, of course, that was under a 6-lane highway. And what happened was a horse did get away and ran across the highway and got killed, right? So they decided to move the stables into Rose Hill, not because of the underpass, because it was a 6-lane highway. They felt that it was probably more appropriate to move it. But you're going to have children with horses riding, and they'll need to get across the road, Oak Park or back again, and it's just common sense. It's a safety factor, and so I believe that the whole equine precinct that we've been talking about out that way is going to add some great value to that area. Part of it is the underpass that is there for safety purposes, and it is in there. It's for safety, and we'd be fools to take it out.
Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, just a quick question, I suppose, about the same issue. In terms of the underpass, so this is a voluntary planning agreement, so the people who are entering into it are entering on a voluntary basis, knowing what their financial contribution will be. And would it be fair to say that having an underpass there will potentially increase the value of the lots that are being created on the other side of the road, and therefore that's one of the attractions for having it?
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, answering the last bit. Well, certainly we'll go for the first bit. Let's try it in the order. Yes, it's a voluntary planning agreement. Initially, there were going to be 4 parties to it, and 1 pulled out. The other 3 are fully aware of that and have continued on with the process in order to progress the proposal, meaning that they would pick up the shortfall. So it is voluntary. You can't make people party to these provisions, so there will be one person that will benefit from it. In relation to the value and the use, yes, this rezoning to allow smaller blocks in an area where we wouldn't normally do it is on the basis that it would have a direct link and a special link to the horse precinct. So it would, both the trails and the underpass, make it more effective, more usable for the future residents and safety.
Just a question on that. So the cost would still be the same, and so that 3 other proponents that are left in the game would have to pay more money because one person's pulled out.
It's based on their block number of blocks that they'll have, so they won't. It's not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It's based on the size of the development for them.
Payable
upon development, yeah. So it's not up front. It's just when they go to subdivide.
I think it was Councillor Munro, then Councillor Mileto.
Mr. Mayor and councillors, look, I think this is a fantastic proposal. Having and being a horseman myself all my life, racing trotters and playing with all sorts of different horses, and so being a farrier, I suppose I've got a pretty good handle on a horse, and I know how they act and the rest of it. Now, I had my 6 or 10-year-old at that precinct. I'd be very happy to have that safety channel through under the road. I think that it's a fantastic idea. It will more than likely be, if I'm right, a low area where it's going to be the minimum amount of fill that we have to fill it to make that road higher, to make the underpass. I'd expect that would be the case. I think if you've ever been on a horse that's a bit stirry or whatever and something upsets it and you're beside the road, which I have been myself on a few occasions, it's very scary for for a very good rider, let alone an inexperienced young kid. Really, these days, cars and people in them don't have any understanding of the horse and the rider on the side of the road and what they're actually trying to achieve. They don't even see the horse being upset or spooked, they just drive. We've become a society that's innocuous to that sort of thing because they haven't had the experience. As a rider, you do, you certainly do. The children, anyone, and also too, it's going to be a safe walking track underneath the road as well for pedestrians and walkways. I just think it's a great opportunity to put a thing in Orange that isn't anywhere else. It'll bring it. Towak Park has been ailing for a long time. The precinct out there, a lot of it's run down. We've put a lot of money into it as council over the years. I think what this will do is it will bring that up. It might get some trainers. It might get some decent horse trainers and races here, maybe. It will improve pony club activity, show jumping, all sorts of equine events. So I think investment's good investment and a very sound judgment we've made here to do this. And I think the land values out there will skyrocket because of it. So I support the motion.
Councillor Mileto.
Thanks, Councillor Munro. Councillors, I'll be supporting the recommendation. I believe that he's also a creative, forward-thinking, a responsible initiative by the developers out there and also council supporting it. I also believe that it addresses a number of safety concerns that I had regarding development of that area moving forward into the future. So I think it's excellent, and whilst other towns or cities may not have it, that should hinder our supporting it tonight, because I think it shows we are showing initiative, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Mileto. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr Mayor. Look, I think it's a high quality precinct. What's been proposed, has been pointed out, it's a voluntary planning agreement. Look, Councillor Duffy has spoken to me about the belief that it's an overkill as far as the underpass is concerned, but I gave it a lot of thought. I mean, could you imagine trying to get a horse across the north? That's just one that swayed me. His long-term vision for safety, and overall, I believe it will enhance the entire precinct, and it will. The investors and the proponents will certainly increase the value of the precinct. Like I say, that sub of Distributor Road in the future. So I think it's common sense. Yes, it's onerous to look at the figure, but the way me also was the contributions on completion of subdivision. So I think it's a win-win for everyone. And this has been back 2 or 3 times to the Department of Planning. Great result. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of consensus come to as far as the precinct is concerned. It can only be viewed as a very valuable asset for the community.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, supporting the concept, I always have, but I just want confirmation on the contributions. There's all various comments here about contributions, and in fact the letter from Planning and Environment, they talk about a maximum 30,000, etc. And we're told if this goes through tonight, because of the concept, there'll be an increase in land values, etc. Can I get an assurance that it'll be at no cost to the ratepayers? The developers will be covering the complete cost of the underpass, all the fencing and everything else.
For you, Mr Mayor, yes, certainly the underpass and the fencing for the walkways is associated with that that voluntary planning agreement in relation to the contribution of normal developments. So the normal large residential land holding contribution plan would apply. Which is about $11,000. So all of the landholders pay that, like every new block, even those that are, it's beyond the voluntary planning agreement, but the voluntary planning agreement just makes sure that the ratepayer doesn't pay for that underpass. That is the protection there.
Another question, Mr Mayor. Has there been an estimate of what the underpass is going to cost? And as we've been through recently, a lot of estimates have been way out on our tender process. So has there been a reasonably firm estimate on the cost of the underpass, and the developers are all aware of that, what that might be?
Through you, Mr Mayor, certainly have our technical service division have reviewed it a number of times to make sure it's accurate. It can be quite a simple underpass whilst of the high value, but it's effectively a pipe that will put the road over, similar to what we've done in other areas of the distributor.
Thanks.
So we're confident, yeah.
It's similar to the construction like the underpass under the railway line up here near James Sheen High School.
Yes, Mr Mayor, yep.
Point of clarification, the maximum payment per block is $20,000.
That's in the voluntary planning agreement, how the three parties have broken it up. Are you referring to?
It's 20,000 plus, is it? Per block.
The reason why we've actually asked to remove note 2 in the recommendation is that we have an existing agreement that deals with rural residential subdivisions already. And for the size of this development, there's no point in having a new agreement. So under that existing rural residential component, with the voluntary planning agreement taking care of the underpass, the other fees that would be charged under that existing arrangement, I believe, are in the order of $10,800 per block. So it's under the Section 94 cap.
So it's $20,000 per block for the underpass.
$1,800.
Stuff is for development.
Sorry, through the Mayor, it is $10,800 is our current charge per block. Gets indexed each year, but it's capped out at $20,000 at the top end. So under this arrangement, similar to other rural residential areas in the council area, the Section 94 or Section 711 contributions in this case would be $10,800 if it was to be developed today.
All right, thank you very much. I think we've had enough discussion. All in favour? Don't forget, number 2 is out.
1, 3, 4.
1, 3 and 4. Our hands, please. Against? Oh, no, Councillor Duffy. Thank you. 5.8 is COVID-19 Orange 360 response post-exhibition. Councillor Whitten and I have declared an interest.
Happy to move the recommendation, Mr Mayor. Second.
No, we need someone to run the meeting.
Yeah.
Taylor,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. We'll just wait for the Mayor and. It's been moved by Councillor Nugent.
Seconded by Munro.
Seconded by Councillor Munro. Is there any discussion? No discussion. I'll put Councillor Duffy.
Get away that way, Councillor. Yeah, I'm not going to be inconsistent. I'm going to speak against it the same way as I did before. There are still hot spots in Sydney, and this money is going to be used, as we had the discussion before when it came in front of us. They're going to encourage people to come out here from Sydney. They don't need encouraging. They're already coming out. Simple as that. We don't have COVID out here. We don't want it out here. Simple as that. I have any problem giving it to them in 6 months' time if the pandemic's over or whatever the case may be. No problem whatsoever. But we're in a time of pandemic where we're trying to keep it in, and they've got hot spots in Sydney. Simple as that. There's no other beg your pardons about it. We've got to be consistent as far as I'm concerned. Everywhere, in the number of places in there, we want, if they can come up here, I'm not going to stop them travelling, but we don't need to promote them. As I said before, there's people out at Heifer Station Mines, there's people out there everywhere. Coming up from Sydney, you can see them when you go down the street. It's just been, I think we need to have the consistency of what there is and why we're doing it. Eyes in the face of our previous decision, what was happening. The previous decision I supported, there wasn't the hotspot. The second wave hadn't started. The second wave is still on. Quite simple as that.
Sorry. So, Munro.
Look, thank you, Councillor. Look, I support it. I think we've got to keep investing in our town. And look, the state government's been, I think, done a very good job with COVID as up to this point. A few mistakes, of course, in the initial stages, but as it sits today, things are pretty good in New South Wales. We're very, very lucky in New South Wales. Victoria's another story, and they're going to improve. I think can't hold back. We've got to go forward. We've got to be positive. And as long as we stick by the state government and the federal government rules on 0.5 metres or whatever it may be, or however, outside dining instead of outside. To promote our town. This is the key time in our city from now to Christmas and afterwards. I think we've got to agree to this. We've got to fund our people that are doing good things for our city, and show that we're not afraid. Like, do things right. Respect each other and our space. We do the right thing. This is a fine thing. This is a fine thing that we do, and I can't not support it. Got to support these sorts of things. So long as we abide by the rules that are set, it don't come. You know, all that sort of thing. We've heard it all before. But we've got a pretty strong country, Australia. We're pretty fair dinkum. Most people won't come if they know they're sick or if there's issues or whatever. It's only the irresponsible ones, I know, that bring these things. But majority of people, 99.9% of the people are responsible, abide by the rules, and we hold people to the rules. And sure, look, the things that Orange 360 and others do, the vineyards and the rest of it, what they do is in their best interest to do the right thing and make sure that their customers, their visitors are doing the right thing. Because as soon as they go outside those rules, they're gone. They're not in business anymore, and they're the blight on our whole town. So we've got to support these things. If we don't, we're idiots.
Councillor McRae, I think. So, Councillor Mileto, I think Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Look, again, as I mentioned before, I do have some concerns about promotion of Orange and the visitor economy, attracting people who may not be as wise in their decisions as to whether they should be travelling or not, and the health concerns of COVID. However, I find it interesting that there were no submissions regarding this during the exhibition period. So that suggests to me, while there may be alarm within the community, particularly evidenced in social media, and people posting comments, particularly in relation to our local newspaper stories, they aren't following it up by actually putting in something as a submission to this kind of proposal and the funding request. I think it is important that as Councillor Munro has said, we do support the local economy and businesses that are doing it tough. We also make our own individual decisions. We choose our own level of comfort in terms of what we do, where we go, where we travel. And again, I would encourage other organisations, similarly with a membership base of whether it's retailers, who may be some other business organisations who have a common interest, to approach council for support so that we might consider their interests as well. but I, on balance, will be supporting this recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor McRae. Councillor Miletta.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll be supporting the recommendation for a number of reasons. I think from what I've seen of regarding Orange 360, they've always been responsible and measured promoting Orange. They do it at the appropriate time. And I think that's the important thing, is when they're going to advertise, when they're going to spend the money. I think they're obviously, they've done that and they've done it wisely. They've also, throughout their period, have maximised the opportunities that Orange presents. They've also done this at the appropriate time. So they don't just make a decision for the sake of making a decision. They do their research and they spend their money wisely with regards to advertising, etc. Orange also, in my opinion, and it's been evidenced with some of the programs on TV, those weekend shows, things like that. Orange is a destination of choice. Again, any advertising should be done at the appropriate time. Businesses have, in my opinion, have always been responsible in relation to COVID-19, and they're mindful of what their responsibilities are too with regard to social distancing, things like that. So I think there is an opportunity here to support them. But I think what is also important for us to understand is that moving forward with regards to COVID-19, and hopefully that will occur sometime in the near future, there are other councils who are on the front foot and who are promoting their own regions. So they're setting themselves up. We need to be a competitor, I believe, in this space, because if we allow other councils to get on the front foot, we're going to be behind the 8 ball. So I think it's an opportunity to prepare ourselves moving into the future. I'm not saying that it has to happen. I wouldn't support it right at this point in time because I don't think the environment's right, but I think that we need to be mindful of what other people are doing and seize on the opportunity to promote Orange, and when the time is right, to get those people back here and make Orange that destination of choice.
Okay, Councillor Hamling.
Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I totally agree with Councillor Miletta. You know, we have had large visitation out here over the past few months, and the wineries, the cafes, the restaurants, the shops, they've all done the right thing. They've adhered to the rules. So I think it shows that, we did have one reported case of COVID, but we've had nothing else from that. So, if there was going to be an influx come out from this advertising, we would have seen it by now. So I agree, probably not right at the moment, but the borders will open up. People will start travelling north, south, east, west. So we've got to keep Orange in their mind, and I think over the past few months people have gone back and they've enjoyed Orange's hospitality, and they've enjoyed knowing that the wineries and the cafes and the shops are adhering to the rules. So I think this is money well spent, because I think $100,000. I think the spend that's going to happen from that, it'll be 20-fold, 50-fold.
Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Look, I agree with Councillor Miller, Councillor Hamling in what they've just said. I also agree with Councillor Duffy, strangely enough, when he says that people from Sydney are already coming. Yes, they are already coming. People in Sydney want to get out of Sydney and go and visit, and the only place I can really go at the moment, pretty much, is to visit regional New South Wales. There's a lot of different cities in regional New South Wales, and as Councillor Miletto said, we need to be a competitor. We need to be keeping Orange at the forefront of people's awareness if we want to slice that market and to support the local businesses here in Orange. So I think we also have to trust Orange 360 that they will spend the money at the appropriate time. We're not giving them $100,000 today and then tomorrow they're going to go out and spend $100,000 on Facebook advertising. That's not going to happen. They'll be spending the money over the course of the rest of this financial year at the appropriate times to attract people to come to Orange when there are events on and as restrictions and people can travel more and more. In terms of COVID, yes, there is always a risk, but the community transmissions here in New South Wales have been very low and continue to be very low, and the government has done a very good job in that regard. So I think very happy to support this. It is about destination marketing and attracting people to come to Orange, but I'd also like to see Orange 360 perhaps consider promoting primary producers and creative industries here in Orange into the Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Canberra markets. So we've got a lot of fantastic primary producers, a lot of fantastic creative industries here in Orange that I'd like to see being promoted into those markets for people from Sydney and elsewhere to buy from the bush.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. Councillor Hamling.
Sorry. The other thing I'd like to see with the $100,000 is that wherever possible, Orange 360 can use local people to do what they want to do with this money. That be a spend it locally. Yeah, if there's campaigns that people can do for them locally, social media campaigns, rather than taking that money out to get someone else to do it from somewhere else, I'd like to see it spent in town.
Well, sure, I'll take that on board. We've also got the Mayor and Councillor Whitten on the board, so that we can ensure that hopefully will happen. I'd like to think it would automatically be in place anyway. Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm not being complacent at all as far as the COVID, and I know there are certain risks. But like currently in New South Wales, there's a population of 8 or 9 million. We've had 4 cases today, or 3 cases, or 10, whatever it might be. I don't know what it is today. Latest one, there was one case in a school yesterday, closed the school down. The government has now got the experience on how to handle these little outbreaks. It's pretty apparent from Councillor Duffy's comments that he's not in business. He's not suffering at the moment, like a lot of the businesses here in Orange and all over Australia are. I know my 2 sons are suffering very badly. But we've got to be careful, but we've got to start opening the country up, and we've got to start opening Orange up. As Peter Robson said tonight, we don't do it. Everyone else in all the other businesses in New South Wales are. I suspect that part of the reason why there are quite a number of visitors coming into Orange already is because of the publicity that Orange 360 has been giving us over the last couple of years. We're now starting to get the benefits of all their hard work. So and as people have said, people are already coming. We hear comments about hotels and motels are already booked out every weekend, etc., etc. So people are coming, they are spending money, helping the businesses recover. And it's all going to be intrastate because we still can't. I was lucky enough, Diane and I were lucky enough to 3 weeks up at Noosa in that little gap when the Queensland border was open. I only heard reports last week that because people can't go overseas, they can't go interstate, they're going intrastate. Qantas last week announced increasing from Brisbane through to Cairns 80 return flights a week because of all the people in Brisbane are going to Cairns and all the other places up on the Great Barrier Reef. Whilst taking every precaution we can, let's not get complacent, but let everyone know through Orange 360, whatever the means be, that Orange is open. We want your money.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Yeah, what's your point of order, Councillor Duffy?
There's say that I'm not suffering. How does he know that I'm not suffering?
It was Councillor. No, Councillor Duffy. You've had your say.
Straight into a canola paddock so they can have
sit down, Councillor Duffy. Come on. You've had your chance. You put your point across. You put your point across. You don't agree with what Councillor Turner said. You're a big boy. You've done it. We'll put the motion. Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Duffy, do you want the name recorded or anything? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll call the Mayor and Councillor Whitten in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. That Noosa comment was out of order. Mr Chair, we're about to start 5.9, page 373, LEP Amendment 26.
Thanks, councillors. 5.9 is the Orange LEP Amendment 26, Forest Road Retail Precinct. Sorry? Yeah, Councillor McRae declared an interest and she's not there at the moment. Okay? Right, Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Look,
Oh, you haven't been moved. We need a mover and a seconder. Who moved it?
Doesn't matter.
Councillor Hamlin moved and Councillor Romano seconded it. That's
Moved and
okay?
seconded.
Yeah, for discussion, yeah.
good, thank you. Again, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I oppose any large development out there. I think it's not timely. We have people under strain at the moment in the CBD, and we've got shops that are empty. I'm not opposed to a development out there, but in time when the actual population grows enough and it's economically viable, I know the developer will say, we're in our right to build a development, and we'll make the decision if it's economically viable or not, and that's the developer's choice. As a responsible council and councillors, I think it's irresponsible of us at this point to give a green light to this development for the reasons that I indicated before. We don't have the population out in that area. Do put anything out there, it has to be very small, just to be able to service need, something very small as far as a general store type thing, because the people who are going to use it are people that have already came through Orange on the way out to Cadia or to hospital to work. Now, if those people want to go out there, pick up something for breakfast on the way into hospital or whatever, or there's someone in hospital that decides to walk across the road and have whatever in a shop or buy something, that's fair enough. There was originally where the old people's home is there, Gosling Creek. There was a little shop, and that was a very successful little shop. People would stop in there and get smokes or whatever and off out to work. That was very successful, and that is very much missed by the people that would have used that facility. So I'm not against something that go there, but I'd like it to be at the absolute minimum, and I'd like the proposal to come back if it is built, a smaller one, that a proposal comes back in time when the population's great enough to make that viable. There's a lot of things that need to happen in between the time a major centre goes out there. We need to fill Shirley. There's opportunities around that area to develop land that's going to be a long time coming. The floor space is very important. We can't be giving the people in jobs in the CBD false hope that they're going to keep their job if a major centre went out there. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. You know, I'm first to say, let's build, let's go forward, let's grow. At this point, for this opportunity, for this specific DA, I disapprove of it. And if anything, I'd only ever approve a smaller development.
Thanks, Councillor Munro.
So is it what Councillor Munro is talking about? Is that in the recommendation of not approving a supermarket or?
Only got a DA.
We'll get Mr. Hodges to answer this.
To explain what you can do under this too. Yeah, Councillor.
Okay. So the recommendation to council is proceeding with the stage one of the development, which is sorry, just hang a second. 1,650 square metres of supermarket, mini major of 416 square metres and shops of 845 square metres. So that is progressing. The recommendation would progress with that. So it makes the mapping and other mechanisms required to do that. It highlights that at stage 2, which is the larger supermarket.
Can I just pull you up there? You said 1,650 metres for a supermarket.
Yep.
840 metres for shops.
845, yep.
Sorry?
845 for shops.
What was the other one?
And 416 for a mini major. So a mini major is a shop of a larger floor area to a point, like it's normally over 500 or 600 square metres up to about 1,500. Things like it could be a small Aldi or a JB Hi-Fi, Rebel Sport, Dan Murphy's, those types of
white goods.
Yeah, different retails. We also need to keep in mind that there's an existing approval that was from some years ago for that site, which is the original hospital approval under Part 3A, which allowed for 11 shops and a restaurant down there as it is. So this proposal is to tweak that development. So originally there was 1,791 square metres of retail in that original development. Would make that it is an increase of 1,119 square metres, and the tweaking of not as many small shops as the three types there that I mentioned.
Can I just ask another question then? Well, you just mentioned a restaurant. Wouldn't the restaurant that's now part of the motel, previous, said you could have a restaurant, or does that mean they could have another restaurant?
They've acted on parts of their consent.
So part of it's been used in the motel?
Yeah, I can't answer that one right now to say whether the original mini motel had a restaurant as part of it.
I'd like an answer on that if we can tomorrow, because, I think we could be playing ducks and drakes here. I mean, there's, restaurant approval has been part of the motel, but you still have another ability to build another restaurant, for instance, they're using. Approval was, I think, need an answer to that.
But there was a question earlier about the restriction of floor space.
Yep.
It's the same as what happens in North. Maximum size and the LEP that goes through that sets out what is the supermarket size, what shops around them. So that's how you normally. So it does actually restrict down the specific use of them as well. Clarify.
Continue on. I can't support a major. I don't know what wording I'd use to. Is it an amendment to what it is, or I can support a shop, can't support a supermarket of any sort at this particular time.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple of questions for the director. Along the lines of Councillor Hammy, I can't support it at this time. But my first question is, what are the processes here if we refuse this here? What it is, and what do we have the opportunity to delay it, 12 months or 15 months, or do we just refuse it and let the developer then go to the state government and say, hey, listen, these Turks don't allow us to have it?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor, in relation to that, so it is a gateway process, as some of you just mentioned, which is where we've already applied, or the applicants put the planning proposal, we put it to the Department of Planning. Department of Planning, with our support, said, yes, fine, you can go ahead and make that LEP amendment. They then pass that delegation under council. So we have to use that delegation by the 21st of May 2021. So that is finishing all the LEP amendments and the mapping, gazettal of that amendment. So it's not a matter of now, because we put it down gateway, whether we could just refuse it. It's more withdrawing your support. The applicant may well take that to the Minister for determination, because we're still got to refer it on to the Minister because we put it in gateway.
Just get the CEO to expand. Just get the CEO to expand on that. You've still got the floor, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just thinking with Councillor Hams, it would be worth defining what options Council has tonight. So could we just run through those? I mean, refuse, approve and defer. Could you just outline what you see as Council's options?
Certainly in relation to approve, number one option is approve as per the recommendation. There could be a deferral for further discussions with the proponent to see whether they tweak around the size of the shops. Attention. Proponent has informally advised us of their interest in that. Or through to withdrawal of complete support for it. Bring it to the Minister for Planning for determination.
Let him, if he's going to move a resolution, I'll see if I can support it first.
I'm happy to move a deferral.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move a deferral only for discussions with the proponent. I don't know if I can say this or not, but I personally will not support a supermarket. I don't know if you can say that.
So no, Mr. Chair, I think if Councillor Hamley, you would be moving a deferral to approach the
for a smaller
proponent to decrease the overall size.
Decrease, and I can't support a supermarket.
And Mr. Hodges' team would go and see where they go.
Mover of that.
Could I add?
Hold it. The mover of that, Mayor. I just got a mover and a second first. Second was Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, in a second.
Councillor Duffy. Could I add to that maybe that you think about when you say you want to make a smaller one, how about we put a size on it, like 1,000 square metres or 15?
Can I just say that's the whole idea of the discussions. Yes. At this stage, look, can I just make quite clear, if the amendment is for a deferral or discussions with the applicant, and councillors going to have their discussions with the CEO and our planning staff about what those discussions are and what they want. Is everyone clear on that?
Yep.
Now, hold it. Just hold a second, Councillor Milletta. Councillor Duffy was on his feet. Now,
listen, I'm not dead set against the deferral, but I'm dead set against it happening out there at the moment, because there is already a shop shopping little small super mini market type of thing already approved out there. But we're not responsible for market forces and whether they come and go, whatever the case may be. But we are responsible for our CBD. And I know up there where Mr. IGA is up there was already another shop closed last couple of days. And yet, and I saw a comment from a previous councillor in this chamber that was in this room when they imposed the 30% CBD beautification and all this type of stuff here, that was critical of us not supporting this if we didn't support it. The CBD has been paying that money in for 50 years. 50 years, and now we're going to try and take business away from them. And we see what dog's breath we got out there at North Orange as far as traffic concerns. And some of us were part of that approval. That's what it is. So I'm not. I'll support the deferral. Don't worry about that. But I'm just not supporting it at this current time, because we have to look after our own industry now, which what you fellas just voted on a few minutes ago about supporting Orange 360. Let's see how you go with this one.
Now, Aldo, you haven't got to come back. You've got to take your losses with your losses. This is a new one.
That's a long bow you've just drawn there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what we need to recognise, for some of us old councillors that have been in the room, and I was planning chairman for 8 years, I've seen this before. I was against North Orange because I was the chamber president. The thing that you need to read in this report is that they have a Part 3A approval by the state government already. This is now the gateway which replaced the Part 3A process. They've already got approval. So the thing that we need to make sure that the public recognise the fact that we may not have a say in this process at all. So the deferral
is negotiable.
So at the end of the day, this may be taken out of our hands, as other developments in North Orange were.
At least we can have a go.
But we need to make sure the community understand that we may not even have a say in this process, and it's already been done, right? Not this whole thing, parts of it already have been approved as rezonings, right?
Councillor Maletta and then Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Councillor
Look,
Turner.
I do have some concerns. Also, believe in future development, but I think what we have to be mindful of, and which is also outlined in the Elation report, a number of councils who were able to attend that presentation were given a very thorough insight as to what Orange may or may not look like into the future. People spend their money as a business from a matter for themselves. What I am concerned about, though, is with that development out there is not so much the size of the shops, and I certainly do note the concerns regarding floor space of any type of supermarket or mini market or anything like that that's going to go out there. What I would be totally against at the time, being mindful of the CBD and the impact it will have on them, is that those are major chain stores going out there. I think we have to be very mindful of the fact that if any of those chain stores go out there, the impact it's going to have on the local CBD. So I couldn't, at this point in time, and I'd certainly support any chain stores going out there like those major brands, things like that. And I don't know whether this, maybe somebody, one of the directors can give me some sort of clarification, whether the rezoning would allow those type of stores to go out there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you would. Mini major could be a chain of JB Hi-Fi or a chain of a record store.
Once rezoned.
Yeah. Councillor Taylor.
So who goes there?
Gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor, I'll keep it brief. I mean, the deferral is the way to go as far as this is concerned. There are some unanswered questions. You put one very relevant one, I think, as far as a clear, succinct definition as far as the retail space. Retail space already in place in some of the developments out there. Councillor Whitten is 100% right in what he said, but the fact of the matter is we can take the opportunity to talk to the proponents about the size. I think it's an unrealistic expectation by any councillors who believe that we can stop any type of development out there. And there is a strong argument that there is a need, and I mean, look at North Orange, as when that was approved and now the amount of population out there and so forth. So I think all we can do now, and it can be taken out of our hands, as the Director has indicated, the Minister determined this. So the best way and the best course forward is some sort of negotiations and more information for councillors to make a more informed decision with input from all the stakeholders, and hopefully we will come to some sort of resolution to this. But I think I think we've got to face reality that there needs to be some development out there, and there needs to be some provision for what will be. Let's not forget Cheryl Lee is going out that way. So what we do now is try and find that compromise, and if we all go in with an open mind, hopefully we will get that. We won't please everyone, but hopefully we'll get the best resolution.
Can I just ask
The Nugent was next.
Anyway,
then
look,
Councillor Turner,
I'm happy
sorry.
to support the deferral. We're talking about, I was asking the Director earlier about the size of that supermarket, 1,615 square metres, I think it is, which is 4 times the size of the mini major. So it's not a Spar mini mart in Alder Street. It's not far short of Aldi or an IGA. So it's a sizable supermarket, and I just think the timing all wrong right at the moment. Just as we've launched into the OC Future City project, we're still sort of dealing with COVID. I just don't think the timing is right. I'd like to see, as was pointed out earlier by Ms Gray, in terms of the total size of it, we're talking about almost 3,000 square metres of retail space, which is a significant increase on what was previously proposed. I just don't feel I can support it tonight, and I'm happy with the deferral.
So Councillor Turner was next.
Thanks,
and
Mr.
then,
Mayor.
then you, Councillor.
Certainly supporting the proposal for deferment. As far as I'm concerned, we need to defer this as far as we can, for as long as we can, until the world settles down. We talk about the effects of COVID. We don't know what the long-term effects of that are. Hear every day about the huge burst in online shopping. We don't know how far that's going to settle back down once things get back to normal. You hear about all the retail vacancies that are in Summer Street. There'll always be some retail vacancies in Summer Street, but we don't know how many of those shops that have been vacated recently will be taken up when things get back to normal. No, there's going to be a shopping centre out South Orange, whether it's proposed Shirley one or this proposal by this developer. There'll be one out there eventually. Kate Gray has reluctantly acknowledged that there will be a shopping centre out there eventually, but she'll only support it reluctantly when the population growth out there warrants it. At the moment, there's 20 or 30 homes in Shirley. That doesn't warrant even a corner store, let alone a supermarket at this point. So whilst, as Councillor Whitten said, they already have approval of some sort out there with a gateway or whatever it might be, but let's defer it for as long as we can until we see what the effects of the once things get back to what we might call normal.
Yeah, well, I think Councillor Munro had a question, then you, Councillor.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I just ask a question to the CEO, please? If we defer it this evening and we get the opportunity to talk to the developer about deferral to build it for a period of time, or can we, what real strength do we have as council? Like, I think when you go into any negotiation...
Perhaps I might answer that for you. We're talking about a deferral, and when we're talking about entering into negotiations, there's no end to what we can sort of put on the table, and that's what negotiation and mediation is all about. We can ask for anything, and that's what I said earlier. The deferral is to say that we will be talking with them, and through the CEO and our directors, councillors have an input on what they think. I don't think we can make a decision on tonight what we want to ask or don't want to ask them. I think it's more important to say we want to defer it.
No worries. Well, I'll have a chat to you tomorrow and have a bit of a...
Councillor Milletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is just regarding clarification of an issue. Thank you, Mr. Hodges. My question is, the businesses which are under this new proposed zoning, will they be subjected to CBD business rates or levies as the businesses are in the main street of Orange, etc.? The reason I say this is because there may be a perception amongst the businesses who are paying those rates that they are subsidising the businesses going out to this zone out there. Harsh, Councillor Harsh.
Yes, I'll have a go at it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, they won't be subject to a CBD rate.
That's right. It's because it's a special levy in the CBD result and approved
I'm sure
years ago.
I'm sure we could invent a rate.
If I may, I'll speak in favour of deferral and referral to the proponents. Can I say that I'm more in favour of, but I wouldn't get it through, of withdrawing my support for it, to be quite frank. I say that with a heavy heart. I can say that I was never ever in favour of North Orange. Get hounded down for that by people saying it's convenient for them that they live out there, but we created an absolute traffic nightmare. Started off as a small, just a few shops and a few little things that we need for convenience. Convenience gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's extended and it's extended. Now, I know from where I live to be far shorter for me to go to their shopping than it would be to the CBD to go shopping, but we don't. We go to the CBD because I believe in supporting our CBD. That's why I was very, very much in favour of looking at our future cities proposal, which we're talking substantial money. We're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars and revitalising the CBD. I've had a look at what's happened to Dubbo. I've had a look at other places. It's quite interesting. You can use the argument, is it a convenience store when the convenience store just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and it becomes another shopping centre. Really what it does become. It becomes another shopping centre. I'm not convinced, after listening to the Lation report, when they showed the projected population figures that you would need for that sort of shopping, we're nowhere near it. They're not within Cooey. We're at about 41,000. They're talking between 55 and 60,000. Now, I will also say I wasn't a strong proponent of Shearerlee. I remember the arguments in here that, oh, God, we had to have Shearerlee. Everyone that worked at the hospital and all those people at Cadia want to live on the south side of Orange at Shearerlee. Well, that should be full now. There shouldn't be houses or blocks of land available out there anymore. It wasn't true. We built it, and it's moving very, very, very slowly. Now, I've had the arguments put to me, oh, yeah, but if someone was at the hospital, they might want a whipper. How many people at the hospital would want to whip over the road and go and do their grocery shopping? Unless I'm a fool. I've never been in hospital and wanted to whip out and go across the road and do my grocery shopping. Well, I have to be quite truthful, I don't do any sort of grocery shopping, so it wouldn't be me anyhow. So I think that, and the other one that really, really concerns me is that we're setting up this fantastic idea of a health precinct. I was out there and had a look at it on Friday. To attract a whole range of medical services out there, from training right to specialist services and a whole range of other things. And I can just imagine this becoming another traffic nightmare like we actually have out in North Orange. North Orange, we shuffled it around a bit and we've put lights in and we've changed a few lanes here, there and everything, but go out there. Go out there on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday afternoons when the kids are out there, little athletics or soccer training or footy training, and Saturday and Sunday, and see how long it takes you to get out of there or in there. People start getting frustrated and waving their hands at each other. And I can imagine that just becoming a real problem where we're talking about here. Now, do we want a health, a hospital, auxiliary things that go with that are fantastic, or do we want a mixed match? And the other one is that, yeah, in years to come, and by the way, I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime, when the population is big enough out that way, with Shearerlee and the extension of Shearerlee and everything, and the population of Orange is 50 or 60,000, yeah, perhaps it will be needed out there, but I don't think I will see it in my lifetime, so I don't see why I would approve it now.
Can I ask one more question, Mr Mayor, if you're...
Yep.
Just through you to the CEO. Applicants, even though if we defer it tonight for discussion with them, they can just say no and take it straight to the Minister. They don't have to consider any discussion with us, do they?
That's correct, Mr Mayor.
That's
through you, Mr Chair.
Yep, no, that's correct. Okay, we've had enough discussion. We've got an amendment, and the amendment is for deferral.
Councillor Romano.
You're withdrawing the motion. All right, so the referral one is becoming the motion. Okay, I'll get the CEO to read that, please.
So the matter now is that the matter be deferred to allow discussions with the proponent on reducing the scale of the rezoning. It allows us plenty of scope to.
Everyone okay with that? Okay, show of hands, please. All in favour? Against? Thank you very much. Will someone get Councillor McRae back on line, please? Yep. 5.10 is the strategic policy review.
Move the recommendation.
Had a move of Councillor Whitten, a second of Councillor Nugent. All in favour, show of hands, please. Against? Thank you very much. 5.11 is part 5 of the environmental assessment, Southern Feeder Road, stage 4.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Turner, seconded Councillor Munro, Councillor Nugent.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple of questions. I note that one is to do with the loss of trees, which will inevitably happen with this development. There's the I can't find the page at the moment where it talks about the number of trees. It's about 0.5 of a hectare, which I think is about
537, page 537.
537.
537 is the page.
Thank you. I was reading it online. I didn't. Page number. So about 0.5 of a hectare, which is about the size of a trees. There is a significant loss. The concerning thing, I suppose, is it's tableland, snow gum, woodland, endangered and environmental that is going. I note that most of them are in moderate. There is about 0.11 hectares of in good condition. So one question is, I guess, how much of that remnant vegetation, because it does talk about elsewhere about minimising the impact on the remnant patches of tableland snow gum on page 536, how much is actually left after the football field is removed? The question, I guess, is in relation to traffic. Obviously, this development is going to increase traffic sort of coming road down to the southern feeder road. We've got where Woodward Street goes over the railway line. That's a relatively tight crossing. Cecil Road is even more tight. It's one lane, I think.
Over the bridge, yep.
So is there plans, that's not our responsibility, railway line, but what is the process for those items and heading from north to south coming down those roads?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr Mayor. Especially in relation to the removal of the trees, so they're just the extent of the road reserve. It's more to the eastern end of it, so up near the rifle range end. So I think from memory there was about 8 of the trees had hollows in them, so they were the older trees, and the rest were the younger ones. Tableland snow gums is rare in itself, that's why it's significant, so we will offset that. That's what is proposed by the review of environmental factors that was submitted for me to review. And so that's be undertaken, and then we'll also be looking at additional works on the site in that road reserve ourselves. So, and boxes, that type of thing, but because it relates to significant ecological species, that's where it talks about those offset credits. So they're separate to us. They're through the biodiversity. So that's not in relation to that particular site. So the money doesn't go back into that site. We'll have to buy those credits elsewhere. But we'll still be doing our patient the area around that site. What is wetlands and that type of thing down the creek as well. So there's a network of systems that's being proposed for some of that rehabilitation. In relation to the traffic matters, I might refer that one to Brenham to comment on that.
Thank you, Mr Hodges, and through the Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor Nugent. As you've rightly stated, those assets aren't actually Council's assets. The bridge crossing and the railway crossing are both rail assets. There have been plans in the past that we're aware of for the upgrading or replacement of that bridge. I understand at the moment there's a process of assessing who will be the rail operator going forward under a new contract arrangement. Once we have that in place, we'll certainly make more inquiries in regard to the Cecil Road Bridge. In regard to the Woodward Street level crossing or the Shirley Road level crossing, that will be one thing that we'll be looking to have upgraded. So we would look to have a bells and whistles approach rather than the standard crossing with no warnings at the moment.
So, sorry, is that something?
We will work with the rail operator.
Who is currently John Holland? Is that?
It's currently John Holland. I believe UGL are also in the race.
It sounds
maybe some others. I believe so.
It's down to 2. Yeah. Councillor Leto and then Councillor Duffy.
Hodges, if you'd come back to the microphone, please. Through you, Mr Mayor, to a question to Mr Hodges. There's been a bit of commentary in the last week regarding SEP 44. Just wondering whether you would be able to comment on whether you feel that the introduction of SEP 44 is going to impact on any future development on that road, especially with regards to the area of trees, etc., that Councillor Nugent is referring to.
The review of environmental factors is quite a substantial document. It also had the biodiversity and so flora and fauna studies in it. So it did not identify that there are any koalas in the area of the road reserve.
Sorry, not clear.
You're talking vegetation clearing.
As regards to the species of trees which are included in the SEP 44, of which I believe there's approximately 130. Are you aware of how many varieties of trees are in that area would be the same within that 130 trees specified in SEP 44?
Not aware of. We've certainly analysed every single tree that is impacted by that needs land clearing, and it's so we're well aware of that. I'm not aware that the SEP 44 modifications would be backdated. So if the matter was approved tonight, that's our approval and we progress with it. So,
Can I just clarify one thing there? One of the discussions there will be is on the species that are listed on there. A lot of them are not koala habit or trees that koalas actually eat. Discussions that are being had. If I can just make one other comment about the trees down there, because I used to live in through there. I think with the road and since the Long Ball Range has actually gone, there's been an improvement in that area. When it was a rifle range, I'd suggest there's hardly been a person in this room ever walked through that area and seen what was in there. If you did, you'd see that there was lots of blackberries, lots of rubbish, a lot of lead up near where the mounds were and so forth, and coming back the other way. I think with the road, I would hope with the offsets that perhaps we could collect seed off some of those trees and see someone like James Sheen High School and a lot of very, very good environmental work in that area, as is the Orange Christian School. Been doing a lot of work along the railway easements and up along the creek and back down on the railway line. They've been doing an incredible amount of environmental work through there. That's the schools have been doing it themselves. So I would encourage members here and members of the public to go out and have a look what the school kids have been doing. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief and straight to the point. Like everyone else, we need roads to build a city, and it needs to go around that way. And there happen to be some trees in the road. We need to knock them down and probably build some elsewhere. If you're going to do anything with the wood, put it in Councillor Taylor's wood pile that you give to people to themselves in winter. So I say, if they're in the road, knock them down. We need the road, more importantly, to ease up the Answer Street, Peasley Street, all these streets, Woodward Street, to ease the traffic around the city.
You'd be against
it's more
the roads
important
because it brings people
than
from
100
Sydney.
metres of trees. You can plant them elsewhere around the city. We're in the process of building a city, not a wildlife park.
Well, hold it. I agree. I'm a little bit lost now. Early on the night you didn't want anyone to come here. Now you want to knock all the trees down and bring everyone in. It's a bit confusing, a bit conflicting. Councillor Taylor.
I know this is the environmental assessment, but I regard this section of road as probably the most important Southern District. The main reason at the moment is, of course, is Anson Street up the top end towards James Sheen with the traffic chaos that's there every morning and every. Once this section of road is in place, that will alleviate a lot of those problems. Traffic will be able to go to the south and then go off from Woodward Street onto Shirley Road or wherever it may be. I know that we haven't secured complete funding for this section of road, but what I'm asking is, and look, the environmental assessment side of it, I think that council have been very thorough with it, and I'm happy with what I've read. I've read the report thoroughly. I would ask that I believe that this is a crucial part. I know that it's possible that we could examine or at least investigate at the moment the opportunity of maybe borrowing the money whilst we are waiting for the state and federal funding, or federal funding if we're fortunate enough to come through, get this road put in sooner rather than later, so that we can alleviate those traffic issues. Interest rates are at the lowest level ever.
I think we'll take that on notice for sure. I think it's a good idea,
that.
and I think you should have heavy discussions with the Minister for Finance beside you there too, and convince him.
Certainly letting him know.
I'm infrastructure now.
Oh, down here. Oh, jeez. Sorry.
Folks, stop
He's ready with his bulldozer to push the trees over, so he's probably keen. But Mr Mayor, just a point I want to make is I know that we're doing the Derry Creek Road section. I know we have the funding for the Derry Creek Road section, but we have a road there already, and that road has been servicing Leewood for 30, 40 years. This section of road will alleviate a lot of those problems up at Anson Street. I mean, and I would urge all councillors, take a drive from Anson Street, from the CBD to the top up to the southern distributor length there at, say, 8:15, 8:20 in the morning or 3:15 in the afternoon, and just have a look at the chaos that's up there.
Caused by a school bus.
Yeah, I'm just asking if we can consider that. Some sort of report or whatever back to us, some sort of answer on what we can do as far as financing that. And I reiterate, whilst we are waiting for the approval of state and federal funding.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I recognise the need for the road. I recognise that, there might not be too many options as to, the route of the road, and that some trees are actually going to be lost as a result of that. But just for Councillor Duffy's benefit, we're not just talking about a bunch of trees. We're talking, the report talks about a significant impact on the scientifically important remnant woodland due to the scarcity of remaining intact woodland of this type in the region. So it's not just a bunch of trees.
That won't mean.
Yeah, I realise that. But so all I'm saying is that can we ensure that we maintain as many of that, that remnant, as much of that remnant bushland as we possibly can, and that we do what we can. And I like your ideas, Mr Mayor, about collecting seeds and maybe replanting in other areas, in addition to the contribution to the Biodiversity Conservation Trust Fund and what might come out of that.
Can I just assure you also that I've overlooked that TAFE has been collecting seeds off lots of those trees and propagating them for probably about 20 years. And if you have a look at the TAFE site, which was the old Orange Dump site, and Nightsoil paddock, which goes down into this remnant bushland, it extends all the way right up now, almost onto Forest Road. It has actually increased the number of those species there.
Question. While I agree with the importance of the road and, maybe borrowing some money, if we borrow the money, the state and federal government aren't going to come out and give us funding for it, are they?
Correct, Mr Chair. That's why I'll bring the report back into closed.
Yeah. I think we need to be... I get the importance of the road. Don't get me wrong. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
But we could do it. We could do it as bridge funding.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that. We'll have a look at it. I think we get the idea of what we want to actually do. So, motion. All in favour, a show of hands. Thanks. Against. Thank you. 5.12 is the 2019-20 financial
recommendation.
statement. Move to, sorry, just slow down a bit. Move Councillor Whitten, seconded Councillor Munro. All in favour? Show of hands.
Just a matter of rising, Mr Mayor. I suppose the important part that we should look at this P&L statement is the net operating result or grants. Take those grants out of there, don't look real healthy. We've got to be coming into unknown territory. We've got to make sure that the keep getting grants.
That's why you've all got to work a lot harder in getting grants. Yeah. Now, just before Councillor,
They haven't voted, have they?
all in favour? Aye, against? Any? If I just may, I've just got to go back. I did overlook one thing when we're talking about the local government conference. Indicate if you want to go to this virtual or what do you call it?
It was determined councillor online attendees for the
Online
online
attendees.
attendees for the conference in November 23rd, and determine which of those attendees will be the 3 voting delegates.
Yep. I'm one. That's easy.
So we're looking for people who want to go, and then
Councillor Munro. You're online for 3 days. Now remember, online for 3 days. Very, very important. We'll be paying the money. We'll put it in the paper. If you put your hand up and say you're going to do it, don't turn up. Have to pay the money.
Say online. Can I have a definition of online?
Zoom.
I think it's on Zoom.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
In front of a screen for 3
In
days.
front of a screen, yeah.
We'll live stream.
Voting delegates.
Your house?
Oh, sure, yeah. In your house or in here. Yeah. Yeah. I was on one today and gave a paper on behalf of council on renewable energies in the Central West, and it was quite interesting. By 11 o'clock, as you can look on a screen to see how many people are still on there. Very, very interesting. A lot of people don't realise that if they do go away from it, you can see who's not actually there. So we've got Councillor Munro, myself, Councillor Duffy. Anyone else? But they're the delegates, but if anyone wants to go, you can go, but you only got 3 voting delegates.
Just matter arising. We're finished with that, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering if I can ask a question to the CEO in regards to people in hardship, Orange, ratepayers that obviously lost their job or whatever through this COVID, and they're having trouble with their rates. What's the procedure? How do we handle people that? How do we help those people get through that period of time? Do we? Can you just explain or bring back a report to how we do that? Because I'd love to be able to more sympathetic as a council.
We are.
I know, and I'd like to be able to tell people that what we're doing. So if you could please.
Happy to bring a report back. Basically, the Mayor's right. You've been very generous already through the COVID crisis, and all you need to do is apply, and we will take every application into account. You remember you waive the commercial rents of all our tenants, so it can be done. It's done all the time. Pensioners get the rebate, of course. Plenty of options.
Yeah, it'd be good to have a.
By the way, just keep in mind here too, it's another thing I'd like to bring up, like in some of those reports sometimes, we're harsh. Well, not too many council give pensioner rebates. What's the state we do?
And why I bring it up, Mr. Mayor, is so that we have a really good understanding by the public where we are and how we operate.
Just on that, are we still not charging interest on overdue rates? I thought we weren't charging interest.
I might
on
defer to
overdue
Mr. Moore unless he just nods and tells me we are still not charging interest, I think is the answer. That's that nod. I know that nod.
Thank you.
And I know that's a good one we have to support, but gee, it's a hard when you know there's some people that have absolutely got a fair bit of money and are pretty slack in paying their rates and have.
They get it.
Yeah, that's right. There's a process.
I'll tell you what, there's
very
some
doable.
the people who haven't got hardships that don't pay them too. I can guarantee you of that.
Different.
All right, I will now close the meeting at 9:30. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Wait 1 second.